Let's turn to some of the other headlines in the news this morning. Get some thoughts from Lettice Bromovsky, a political commentator and contributor to Young Voices UK. Lettice, good morning.
Hi, Calum. Thanks for having me back on.
Oh, it's really lovely to have you. Thank you so much for being up early with us. The Times front page this morning does lead on the situation in Liverpool, but also on there is a story about COVID booster shots for the under 50s to prevent a winter wave. Now, we're we're knee deep in winter. We're kind of getting into it now, 15th of November. But this is from Stephen Swinford, our Times political editor. The booster programme to be extended to under 50s to try to increase immunity to coronavirus over the winter. We're expecting an announcement on this today. I just wonder how enthusiastic younger people are going to be for a booster jab, people under 50, to try and keep people out of hospital, to try to limit the risk of another wave. Is a booster shot going to be welcomed as a way to try and have a kind of more normal winter, do we think?
Well, I'm not so sure if it will be welcomed, particularly, amongst younger people. It's not normal to be vaccinating the vaccinated already. People don't really want to be a continuous pincushion. If we get the booster now, there's a sort of idea of when will this stop? When will this end? The booster jabs, some people have taken them, particularly those who are most vulnerable. And I think that's where it really should remain at the moment with the most vulnerable. We have been seeing a steady decrease in COVID infections over the past few days. And I believe that the government should focus this money. It would be much better spent on testing people for antibodies and then seeing from those tests people who are having the lower antibodies and then them getting the booster from there. As the government believe, or their advice is at the moment, that protection from the vaccine falls by about a third after 6 months. But again, this is mainly seen in older people.
A total of 12.6 million over 50, so just over a third have had booster jabs, and that programme is set to finish by January. I do think that anecdotally, in some places certainly, the kind of rollout of the booster programme has been a little bit messier compared to dose 1 and 2, which seemed to be a rather slick operation, which is a really good thing. But actually the booster programme has been a little more, I don't know if messy is a fair word to use, but certainly less planned, less slick. And I just wonder if that's a bit of a turn-off as well, if it's going to be more difficult to book jabs. Of course, you have to have 6 months after your second dose, so actually a lot of younger people, it's going to be probably into the new year by the time their 6 months is up.
Yeah, no, definitely. The rollout of this booster jab program has been very chaotic, much more chaotic than, as you say, the first and second jabs. There was huge problems at the start where fewer than half of those eligible had not been contacted about their third jab. And this meant that hundreds of thousands of the UK's most vulnerable and high-risk patients were in danger of missing out because they hadn't been contacted. And then on top of this, you are hearing a lot of stories about these patients who are vulnerable saying that booking them have been impossible.
I want to mention Austria at this point because as we discuss enthusiasm for a booster programme in the UK, we should consider Austria, where about 2 million people who have not been fully vaccinated against COVID-19 have been placed in lockdown as the country faces a surge in cases. The Chancellor, Alexander Schallenberg, saying, "We're not taking this step lightly, but unfortunately it is necessary." So unvaccinated people being locked down.
Yeah, no, I think this is a very dangerous and entirely a step in the wrong direction. Austria at the moment are having a huge spike in cases. They've got around 10,800 new cases daily. And so essentially the hospitals are full. They don't have enough doctors. They don't have enough nurses. And the Chancellor, as you said, has come out and said that if why should 2/3 of the population suffer if 1/3 can't make up their mind? But this 1/3 has essentially now been put under house arrest. They're banned from restaurants, cinemas, ski lifts, hairdressers, essentially everything. And this is all in an attempt to force people to go to the vaccination centres. On top of this, there's no longer an option to present a negative test. So it's very dangerous, this sort of apartheid between the vaccinated and the unvaccinated. And it has not been met lightly.
Yeah. I was going to say, I tell you what it will do though, Lettice, is it will expose those who are just being a bit, silly about not getting vaccinated. You know, those who don't have any particular conviction about getting vaccinated. So in Austria, 65% of the population is fully vaccinated, which is one of the lowest rates in Western Europe. And surely this sort of situation this sort of lockdown, I mean, for unvaccinated people, will really draw people out who are doing this for no other reason than, for example, laziness. They just haven't bothered to go and get it. There's no principle. There's no actual reason. And as we know, when people are fully vaccinated, it protects everyone. So actually, this is in the interest of the 100%, that actually the remaining 35% of Austria's population get their finger out and go and get fully vaccinated.
I see your point. However, I think this level of coercion of people being banned is very dangerous. We're seeing a huge amount of protests across the country, saying that this is no longer democracy, this is corona fascism. What we don't know is how they will identify people who have been unvaccinated. There are going to be huge fines if you are caught, around 1,450 euros. If you are caught outside and you are unvaccinated. I think really from what you said, this comes down to your freedom of choice. And even if you are that lazy person, it's ultimately your freedom of choice to get this or not.
It is interesting, isn't it, this whole discussion about not getting vaccinated, because the science is there. It boggles my brain when people suggest that they don't want to get vaccinated, when there is such clear evidence of the advantages and in fact the distinct lack of disadvantages as well. I don't know. I don't fully understand, but it is fascinating to see what Austria is doing in this circumstance. A quick mention of a final story then, and this from the Telegraph this morning. France must intercept every Channel migrant, Priti Patel to warn. So the Home Secretary is going to tell her French counterpart that 100% of boats must be stopped. There was a day last week where 1,185 migrants reached the UK in a day. So Priti Patel meeting her French counterpart this week, Gerald Darmanin, the French Interior Minister, trying to find a shared solution to the what's being described as the Channel crisis. Is it right that Priti Patel asks France to intercept every single boat, every single migrant before they reach the UK?
Well, I definitely think it is, yes. There was a deal that was struck between the UK and France that we would give them £54 million in funding for extra police patrols and surveillance, and France in return pledged 100% interception rate. So obviously this deal is now going ahead. First instalments have gone through. But on top of that, it seems as if France isn't even trying to intercept these boats. So that figure that you said of around 1,200 migrants came through. France managed to stop just 99 of those migrants on Thursday, which was fewer than a tenth of the entire total. And one of their excuses for this was that it was a bank holiday, as if all the migrants can suddenly cross because it is a bank holiday on this day. So I definitely think there is a fair excuse to be a bit angry. We also know Priti Patel is under a lot of pressure from government, particularly Boris, who is unhappy with how this is going. And there's a lot of questions around competence arising.
A lot of questions around competence arising in very, very many areas of government. Lettice, thank you very much. Very nice to speak to you. Thanks for coming on. Lettice Bromovsky, political commentator, thank you, and contributor to Young Voices UK. I have to say, it does make me chuckle. If you want to cross the channel, do it on a bank holiday.